Mystery of Black Hollow Lane, Chapter 21. And I've got my detective hat on because this is called the Round Tower. So let's see. Emmy couldn't speak. She couldn't move. She couldn't do anything but stare. This wasn't how I wanted things to happen, Jonas said, but sometimes I have to make tough choices as Brother Loyola. Your Brother Loyola? At the moment, yes. There was another Brother Loyola before me, and there will be another one after. There will always be a Brother Loyola to look after the order of Black Hollow Lane. But I thought, Larrabee. Yes, Larrabee does have his uses. All his blundering makes him an excellent decoy, and he does not like to feel involved. When I had him staged that phone call for you to overhear, I wasn't sure he'd be able to pull it off, but I had to get you down here, and I had no other options left. The phone call in Larrabee's office, it was fake, and it wasn't the only thing. Jonas's kindness, all his helpful suggestions, it was all fake. She wanted to scream at him. She wanted to burst into tears, but she had to keep her head. He wasn't her friend, Jonas, anymore. He was Brother Loyola, and he was blocking the only way she knew how to get out of here. Get him talking. Give yourselves time to think. Why did you need to get me down here? I saw you in the humanities wing that night. I know you have a medallion. Emmy's insides lurched. You were watching me? I've been keeping a close eye on you for a while, ever since you asked me about Tom. Hot sweat prickled at the back of Emmy's neck. How could she have been so stupid that she'd told Jonas about her dad? Why had she even brought him up? Jonas. He'd said he'd found her gloves at the church, but she thought he was returning something else. My letter. You knew Brian had my dad's letter? Jonas nodded. Mr. Stratton can be a bit direct when he wants information. Sometimes he needs a little reining in, but it was the first link we'd had to Tom in years. I couldn't let him be punished for it. Of course, Jonas was the only one who told Brian about them breaking into the office. She should have figured that out ages ago. Finding out Thomas Allen was your father changed everything. Why? I told you I knew Tom, and I did. At least I thought I did. He was my roommate. Emmy's fingers twitched. She should be figuring out how to get out of here. But her dad's roommate was standing in front of her, and she couldn't get her feet to move. She needed to hear the story. Tom and I were recruited from the order in our 5th year at Wellsworth. We rose quickly through the ranks, and by the time we left school, we were part of Brother Loyola's inner circle of advisors. When we left school, we were both given tasks. I was in charge of recruitment, and Tom was in charge of establishing a political presence in London. A political presence? Like some kind of party, like the Democrats or the Republicans? The order doesn't answer to any particular political stripe. Our only goal is to look after our own. Each member plays a part to ensuring that the order as a whole has as much influence as possible. I don't get it. Why should we inform a political party when that would mean we are all influencing ourselves in this politics that we don't believe in? Our members include scientists, diplomats, prime ministers, Nobel Peace Prize winners. We work together to ensure each member gets the life he deserves. Let's say one member sees another's name on the list for a possible promotion. He makes sure that promotion happens. Or maybe a member owns an oil company and he wants permission to drill in the North Sea. We'll have someone placed in government who can ensure permission goes ahead. Right now, I'm helping a young man develop his skills in recruitment. He comes to Wellsworth every once in a while, and I mentor him as he works with our boys. All of us benefit. He comes to Wellsworth every once in a while. He works with our boys. Vincent, Emmy said. You're still mentoring Vincent Galt, aren't you? That's why he's been hanging around the school. Jonas nodded. One member helps another and our influence grows. Emmy frowned. That didn't sound so bad. Why would the order have gone after my dad if it was just a club where members help each other? That doesn't sound like something worth killing someone over. As our influence has grown, it has needed to move outside the law. Dealing in weapons, the magic black market, the underground diamond trade, these are necessary parts of our work. A nasty feeling slithered up Emmy's throat. The order sounded like some kind of mafia. Jonas was talking about influence. That was just another word for power. Barlow had said something about power when they visited the Round Tower Church. There will always be people who crave power and people who will go to any lengths to hold on to it. An icy tingle twitched at Emmy's spine. What lengths would Jonas go to? He started pacing, his feet scuffing the old stone floor. I thought Tom and I were on the same page. I thought he believed in our mission. But in our last year of school, he started having second thoughts. One of his friends was injured when an initiation ritual went too far. The girl was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was just an accident. I kept his misgivings to myself and didn't object when he was given such an important task when he left school. My task was just as important, to mould and shape young minds. Here is a privilege. Emmy cringed. It sounded more like brainwashing kids. Why was he telling her all this? He was giving her a lot of information she could take to the police. He must not be planning on letting her out of here. She swallowed down the panic that clutched at her throat. He was telling her things about her dad, but it wasn't out of goodness of his heart. He must be trying to coax her into revealing something he wanted to know, and then he wouldn't need her anymore. Jonas grabbed at the back of his neck and rubbed it like he was trying to blot out a bad memory. Pathetic, all his self-righteousness. He just didn't have the stomach to do what needed to be done. He pretended he was on our side, and then he crippled us. Pride flickered on Emmy's chest. Her dad had done something to stop them. What did he do? Jonas stopped pacing and looked straight into Emmy's eyes. He stole something. Emmy licked her lips. The medallion in her pocket seemed to double in weight. She could lie and say she didn't know what he was talking about, or she could just hand the medallions over and be done with it. Maybe then he would let her go. Then again, he might not. If Jonas really wanted those medallions, they might be her best bargaining chip. If she could figure out why they were so important, maybe she could use it to her advantage. Why do you need that medallion? Emmy said carefully. Obviously, you can get down here just fine without it. There must be hundreds of medallions like the one somebody sent me. You know perfectly well that there was more than one medallion in that box, said Jonas. So the medallion she used to get down here wasn't the one he was looking for. That meant each medallion did something different, and Jonas must not have the complete set. Are you missing one? There was only one complete collection, said Jonas. It is passed from one brother Loyola down to the next. Without it, we can't access all the resources we have worked so hard to collect and preserve. Resources? That meant money. Are you running out of cash? I thought you'd be rolling in it with all the illegal stuff you do. Can't you just knock over a bank? Jonas's mouth twitched. We always have money coming in, but we use it just as quickly. Every time we expand our reach, we need new funds. When your father took the medallions, it meant we couldn't get what we needed. Emmy was starting to see things more clearly. When her dad took the medallions, it was like he took their house keys. Only these keys were a lot more valuable. There are rooms you can't open. Rooms with money, like vaults. Rooms with resources, he corrected. But yes, they are vaults. The monks at Blackhole Abbey built them to preserve their collection of art and antiques. The last abbot of Blackwell passed that collection to the first brother Loyola. When Catholics were being persecuted, the vaults were the perfect place for them to hide their valuables. Some of those valuables went unclaimed, and in times of great need, the order has sold some of those objects to keep afloat. This is one of those times. We need to access our vaults so we can continue to move forward. Jonas started walking toward her. You have something of mine. Emmy took a step back. I don't have anything of yours. You're not a very good actress. There's only one way you could have gotten down here tonight. The sound of his footsteps ricocheted off the ceiling. 1 step, 2 steps, closer. Emmy needed to get out of here, but how? The only corridor she could navigate was blocked, and who knew where the other ones would take her? The lane was a maze that she could get lost in for days, but Jonas probably knew it like the back of his hand. If Emmy was going to make a break for it, she needed a way to even the odds. She glanced at the lanterns that hung between the archways. Maybe, just maybe, they could give her what she needed. If I did have the box and I gave it to you, would you let me go? Of course. His answer came quickly as lightning. Emmy swallowed. He was lying. You're right, Emmy said. Somebody did send me a box, but it wasn't complete. Most of the spaces were empty. She looked straight into Jonas's eyes with her most blank expression. Please let this be a convincing lie. I can give you what I have, though. Jonas closed his eyes and smiled. He believed her. She pulled her bag off her shoulder and held it up to her lantern so she could see what was inside. You won't regret this, young miss. She put her fingers on the bag zipper and took a deep breath. Then she grabbed a lantern off its hook and flung it at Jonas with all her might. The flame blew out, but the sound of the shattering lantern glass and garbled yelling told her she'd hit her mark. She swung the bag over her shoulder and ran as fast as she could, zigzagging from corridor to corridor like she was running a soccer drill. Jonas's foot started echoing off the walls, and Emmy couldn't tell where they were coming from. Her only hope was that her footsteps would just be as confusing. She ran through countless archways and rooms. An exit. There has to be an exit. Finally, a set of long, slippery steps appeared. They were so steep she used her hands for balance and clambered up them like a ladder. Footsteps banged on the stairs below. They were a long way down, but they were approaching fast. She could see a crack of light ahead, just a little further. She reached the top. It was a trap door. She flung it open and hoisted herself through. She only had a few seconds before Jonas would catch up to her. The cold air took her breath away. Wind whistled through stone that loomed around like a fortress. Where was she? She looked around the little room. There was no door. An iron staircase wound its way upward, and Emmy jumped on. The iron clattered and banged and telling Jonas exactly where she was, and she had no choice but to keep going. The stairs climbed through the ceiling and onto a wrought iron floor. Giant windows without glass let in blasts of icy wind. A huge bell hung over a gaping hole that looked into a room below. She looked around and her shoulders sagged. There was no door there either. Jonas's footsteps clanged on the iron stairs. She was trapped. Jonas walked slowly up the last few steps, his face bloodied and burned. Emmy lifted her chin. She aimed the lantern well. Jonas stepped toward her. Take one more step, and I'll scream, she replied. She yelled, We're not underneath the school anymore. Someone will hear me up here. Jonas laughed. Not here. Not out here, love. Haven't you figured it out? Haven't you figured where we are? She'd never been in here before. There was nothing in this little round room except the massive bell. It hung between them, its thick rope dangling down through the hole and touching the floor of the room below. Her insides deflated. We're in the belfry of the round tower church. Very good, Jonas pointed to the closest building. Even the teacher's housing is too far away to hear us. I'm sorry it had to come to this, but you've given me no choice. That box is the best hope we have to carve out our future. He took a knife out of his pocket. Hand it over, or I'll have to take it one way or another. You'd be amazed by what I can pass off as an accident. Accident? That's what Jack had called it when Brian left him in the forest all night. That's what Jonas had said about her dad's friend being seriously hurt. That's what everyone called it when Malcolm fell off the chapter house roof. But none of those things were accidents, and neither was this. Emmy crouched down and fumbled in the dark for the bag zipper. The moonlight, which shone straight into Jonas's battered face, didn't reach to the floor. Jonas held the knife higher and reached with his other hand. Pass the box slowly! She pulled it out of her bag. It was strange to think she'd never see it again. She'd spent so long keeping it away from the order. She wasn't about to give that up now. Emmy reached back and hurled it out the giant window. No! Jonas screamed. He lunged his arms out the next window, but the box was already swallowed up by darkness. It belonged to the North Sea now. Jonas smashed his hand against the wall and screamed again. He looked back at Emmy, his mouth twisted into snarl. You're going to wish you hadn't done that! Emmy could barely breathe. There was nobody to rescue her, nobody to ask for help. She was alone and she was out of ideas. There were a lot of questions about the order. Someone will figure it out. It was you. Blood was dripping down Jonas's face and splotching onto the iron floor. I'll have plenty of time to sort that out. No one even knows we're up here. Emmy's heart stopped. That was it. That was the answer. If only she could make it happen. You're right. Emmy took 2 steps back. No one knows we're here. Suddenly she sprang forward, leapt over the hole, and wrapped her hands around the rope. It tightened, and the bell started to ring. The sound was deafening. Jonas clamped his hands over his ears and looked straight at the teacher's housing. Lights were starting to turn on. He growled and lunged for her. She slackened her grip and slid down into the next room, her bag banging against her back. He couldn't reach for her there. There was shouting outside the teacher's dorms. Just a few more minutes and she'd be safe. The rope jolted. Jonas was furiously sawing through it. If she stayed here where she was, the rope would break and she'd catch 20 feet onto the stone floor. If she slid down to the ground, where would she go? She twisted her body and looked all around. There had to be a way out. Finally, she saw a crack of light, a dim outline that didn't fit with the stones around it. It reached all the way down to the floor, the outline of a door. The rope jolted again. Jonas had almost cut through it. She slid down the rope, jumping the last few feet and hurling herself at the crack. The stone swung open and she flew into her new room. She heard Jonas thundering down the iron steps and she ran into the darkness as far as his footsteps as possible. A light flashed into her eyes. Arms wrapped around her and she screamed.